Every couple argues. It's not a sign of failure, it's a sign that two people are trying to build something meaningful together. But the difference between couples who fall apart and couples who stay strong isn't about how often they argue, it's about how they argue and what they choose to do afterward. Smart couples don't argue to win, they argue to understand. In the heat of a disagreement, it's easy to fall into the trap of trying to be right, trying to prove a point, trying to come out on top. But when one person wins, the relationship loses. The healthiest couples shift the focus from how do I win this to how can we grow from this? They ask each other questions not to corner each other, but to understand. They approach conflict with empathy, not ego. When two people come together in a relationship, they bring with them different experiences, beliefs, communication styles, and emotional patterns. It's inevitable that disagreements will arise. But what truly defines the strength of a relationship isn't whether conflict happens, it's how it's handled. One of the most powerful shifts that smart couples make is choosing to prioritize understanding over winning. The need to win an argument is deeply rooted in ego. It comes from a desire to assert control, to be heard louder, to prove a point. But in relationships, winning doesn't work the way we think it does. If one partner wins and the other feels dismissed, misunderstood, or emotionally bruised, then the relationship loses. You might gain the last word, but you lose the deeper connection. You might make your case perfectly, but if your partner walks away feeling unseen, the cost is too high. Prioritizing understanding is about taking a step back in the heat of the moment and asking yourself, what's really going on here? Often, the argument isn't about the dishes, the text message, or being late. It's about feeling disrespected, unappreciated, or unheard. When couples focus only on the surface level details of the fight, they miss the emotional message underneath. But when they choose to dig deeper and seek to understand the real feeling behind the frustration, they start addressing the root instead of just the symptoms. Understanding doesn't mean agreement. You can understand your partner's feelings without having to agree with their perspective. It's about creating space for their truth to exist, even if it's different from your own. It's the difference between saying, you're overreacting, and saying, I can see this really upset you. One may understand why. One shuts the door, the other opens it. This approach requires humility. It requires emotional maturity. It takes strength to pause, to ask questions, to listen without planning your counter-argument. It means choosing to stay open, even when you're feeling defensive. When both partners are willing to do this, to say, help me see what you're experiencing, the conversation shifts from combat to collaboration. And that's where growth happens. Understanding also builds trust. Every time you show your partner that their emotions matter, even when you're upset, you reinforce safety in the relationship. You create a dynamic where both people feel valued, not just for what they say, but for how they feel. And when people feel safe, they communicate more honestly. They soften. They stop guarding themselves. They open up. Smart couples learn this over time. They realize that being right isn't the goal, being connected is. They replace the urge to dominate with a desire to relate. They listen with curiosity, not contempt. They seek common ground rather than trying to prove superiority. And even when things get heated, they circle back with empathy. They ask questions like, what did you need from me in that moment? Or how could I have handled that better for you? These aren't just conflict resolution tactics. They're expressions of love. Ultimately, understanding over winning is a philosophy. It's a decision to put the relationship before the ego. It's a reminder that arguments aren't about scoring points. They're about staying connected while navigating the messy, imperfect human reality of being in love. When couples embrace this mindset, they build resilience, they grow together, and they create a relationship that's not just about surviving conflict, but evolving through it. When conflict arises in a relationship, many people automatically associate it with tension, emotional distance, or even fear. That's because most of us have witnessed or experienced conflict that spiraled into shouting matches, passive-aggressive silence, or emotional withdrawal. But conflict itself is not the problem. What matters is the environment in which conflict takes place. Smart couples understand that the most important thing they can do during an argument is to create emotional safety for themselves and for each other. Emotional safety means that even in the heat of disagreement, both people feel respected, heard, and emotionally protected. It's not about eliminating strong feelings. It's about knowing that expressing those feelings won't lead to humiliation, abandonment, or punishment. In a safe emotional space, partners don't have to walk on eggshells. They can speak honestly without fearing that the other person will shut down, lash out, or use their vulnerability against them later. This kind of safety doesn't happen by accident. It's built deliberately, moment by moment, especially in hard conversations. Smart couples know that conflict is when people are most emotionally raw, so they become more intentional, not more reactive. They resist the urge to use sarcasm, threats, or guilt. Instead, they regulate their own emotions so they can respond, not just react. When voices rise, they stay grounded. When triggers flare, they notice them without letting those emotions take the wheel. It's not easy, but it's essential. One of the most important aspects of creating safety is choosing words that foster connection instead of division. Blame kills safety. Statements like, "You always do this," or "You never care about how I feel," immediately put the other person on the defensive. Instead, strong couples use language that shares feelings and seeks understanding. They say things like, "I felt hurt when that happened," or "I'm struggling to feel heard right now." These kinds of statements keep the door open for dialogue rather than closing it with accusation. Tone and body language also matter. Safety isn't just verbal, it's physical and emotional. Rolling your eyes, crossing your arms, raising your voice, or walking away in the middle of a sentence all send signals that it's not safe to stay engaged. On the other hand, maintaining eye contact, softening your voice, and being present, even when things are difficult, says, "I care about this conversation, and I care about you." Creating safety also means being accountable for how we show up in conflict. Smart couples are willing to own their part without waiting for the other person to go first. They apologize when needed, not because they're giving in, but because they value the relationship more than their pride. They say, "I realize that hurt you and I'm sorry," even if they didn't intend to cause pain. Accountability is not weakness, it's leadership in a relationship. When emotional safety is present, something amazing happens. People stop fighting against each other and start working with each other. Conflict becomes less about proving a point and more about solving a problem. It becomes an opportunity for deeper understanding and renewed connection. And the more a couple experiences conflict handled with care, the more trust they build over time. They begin to believe, even when we struggle, we're still safe together. We still have each other's back. Ultimately, safety in conflict is the foundation of resilience in love. It's not about having perfect communication or avoiding disagreements. It's about showing up with presence, with care, and with a deep commitment to protect the emotional bond, even when things get messy. That's what turns conflict into growth. That's what keeps couples strong. In every relationship, there are moments when emotions run high, words get sharp, patience gets thin, and misunderstandings can quickly escalate. In those moments, what separates strong, emotionally intelligent couples from those who struggle is not whether they get angry or frustrated. It's what they choose to do with that emotion. Smart couples pause before reacting. That simple pause can be the difference between deepening connection and causing unnecessary hurt. When we're emotionally charged, our natural instinct is often to defend, to attack, or to retreat. It's a biological response. The brain senses a threat, real or perceived, and shifts into survival mode. But in relationships, reacting impulsively rarely solves the problem. It usually makes things worse. That's why the pause is so powerful. It creates space between the trigger and the response. And in that space is where choice lives. The pause doesn't have to be long. Sometimes it's just a breath, a moment of awareness before the next word leaves your mouth. Sometimes it's a sentence like, "I need a minute to collect my thoughts." That's not avoiding the issue, it's protecting the relationship. It's signaling, "I care about how I respond. I care about how this lands. I care about us." Pausing allows us to reflect, even briefly, on what we're about to say or do. It gives us the chance to ask ourselves questions like, is this going to move us forward or push us further apart? Am I speaking from a place of clarity or from a place of pain? Will this help my partner understand me or just hurt them in return? This moment of mindfulness shifts the dynamic. Instead of being driven by emotional reflex, we're guided by intention. And intention is everything in relationships. When we act with intention, we protect the emotional safety between us. We become more thoughtful, more respectful, and more effective in our communication. Pausing also models self-awareness. When one partner chooses to slow down instead of escalate, it sets a tone for the entire conversation. It lowers defensiveness. It invites the other person to do the same. It creates a rhythm of respect, even in the middle of disagreement. Smart couples often develop unspoken habits around this. Small rituals like walking away for 5 minutes, writing down thoughts before speaking them aloud, or simply saying, "Let me think about how to say this better." This habit doesn't come naturally to everyone, especially for people who grew up in environments where conflict was either explosive or completely avoided. But it's a skill that can be learned, and it gets stronger every time it's practiced. The more a couple learns to pause, the more trust they build, because over time, both people come to believe, even when things get hard, you won't lash out. You'll choose to be intentional with me. It's important to understand that pausing isn't about suppressing emotions. It's about giving emotions the space to settle so that communication can be clear. It's about respecting the relationship enough to not let a temporary feeling cause long-term damage. It's not about being passive, it's about being wise. In a healthy relationship, the goal isn't to avoid conflict, it's to handle it with grace. And grace begins in the pause. That moment of silence between stimulus and response isn't empty. It's full of care, full of choice, full of strength. It says, I love you enough to be careful with you. I respect you enough to take a breath before I speak. In that pause lives the potential for healing, growth, and deeper love. And that is what makes a relationship strong. Not the absence of struggle, but the presence of conscious response. In the heat of an argument, the most natural response for many people is to defend themselves, to protect their intentions, to explain, to justify. It's a human instinct. No one likes to feel misunderstood, accused, or blamed. But smart couples know that defensiveness builds walls. It shuts down communication, escalates tension, and leaves both people feeling more distant than before. That's why strong relationships are built on a different response: curiosity. When a partner expresses hurt, disappointment, or frustration, the curious response doesn't say, "That's not what I meant," or "You're taking this the wrong way." It says, "Tell me more. Help me understand what you're feeling." This shift from defending to exploring opens the door to connection. It sends the message that the relationship matters more than the need to be right. Curiosity invites dialogue. Defensiveness shuts it down. When we get defensive, we stop listening. We interrupt, deflect, or turn the blame back on the other person. We focus so much on protecting ourselves that we stop trying to understand what our partner is actually saying. But when we stay curious, we ask questions, we lean in, we seek to uncover what's really going on beneath the surface. This doesn't mean accepting blame that doesn't belong to us. It doesn't mean staying silent when something feels unfair. It means making space for another person's reality. Because in every argument, there are two truths. When we stay curious, we don't have to agree with every word our partner says. We just have to be open to the idea that their experience is valid. Their emotions are real. Their pain deserves attention, not argument. Curiosity changes the energy in a conversation. It moves things from adversarial to collaborative. It shifts the dynamic from me versus you to us figuring this out together. That kind of mindset brings down defenses on both sides. It allows people to feel safe enough to be honest even about hard things. And in that honesty, healing begins. Smart couples make this a habit. They train themselves to ask instead of assume. When something doesn't feel right, they say, "What's coming up for you right now?" When they're criticized, they respond with, "Can you help me see what I missed?" That doesn't mean they never feel defensive. They do, but they don't let that feeling dictate their behavior. They pause, they reflect, and then they choose curiosity instead. This approach requires humility. It takes emotional maturity to say, maybe there's something I don't understand yet. It means putting the relationship above the ego. And that's not always easy, but it's worth it. Because when both people feel safe enough to speak their truth and be met with curiosity instead of judgment, the relationship becomes a place of freedom, of growth, of mutual respect. Curiosity also builds resilience. It turns conflict into an opportunity for learning. Instead of fearing disagreements, couples begin to see them as moments of deeper insight into each other. They learn each other's triggers, wounds, fears, and needs. They become better equipped to love each other well, not just when it's easy, but when it's hard. In the end, choosing curiosity over defensiveness isn't just a communication strategy. It's an act of love. It's saying, I care more about knowing you deeply than I care about protecting my pride. It's saying, I choose to believe that your feelings are worth understanding, even if they make me uncomfortable. That level of emotional generosity is what separates reactive relationships from lasting ones. And it's one of the clearest signs of a couple that's committed not just to staying together, but to growing stronger, closer, and more compassionate with every conversation. In every close relationship, mistakes happen. Words are said in the heat of the moment. Emotions get out of hand. Sometimes one partner shuts down, the other explodes, and tension builds. But what truly defines the strength of a couple isn't whether these moments happen, it's how quickly and sincerely they repair afterward. Smart couples repair fast and mean it. They don't let conflict linger like a shadow between them. They act quickly to reconnect because they understand that emotional distance only grows if left unattended. Repairing fast doesn't mean rushing past the issue or pretending it didn't happen. It means recognizing when something has hurt the relationship and stepping in quickly to make things right. It's the willingness to say, I messed up, or I see how that affected you, without waiting for the other person to make the first move. Strong couples don't keep score. They don't let pride delay healing. They prioritize connection over ego, but speed alone isn't enough. The repair must be genuine. A quick sorry that's offered just to avoid more conflict won't rebuild trust. What matters is the intention behind it. Do you actually understand how your actions impacted your partner? Do you mean it when you say you're sorry? Are you willing to learn from the moment so the same issue doesn't keep repeating itself? These are the deeper questions that define meaningful repair. A sincere repair begins with empathy. It starts by truly trying to step into your partner's shoes and see the experience through their eyes. That's not always easy, especially if you feel misunderstood or hurt too. But love means making the effort to understand even when it's uncomfortable. It means saying things like, I can see now why that made you feel abandoned, or I didn't realize how much that hurt you. I get it now. These aren't just apologies, they're emotional acknowledgments. They say, you matter, your feelings matter. Smart couples also use repair as a moment to grow, not just recover. They talk about what happened, what led to it, and what they can do differently next time. They don't just sweep it under the rug. They're not afraid of the discomfort because they know that real intimacy is built through honest conversations, even the hard ones. Every repair becomes a step toward deeper understanding and stronger connection. Another powerful element of fast repair is consistency. When one or both partners consistently take responsibility and reach out to make amends, it builds emotional security. Over time, both people begin to trust that no matter how difficult things get, they will always find their way back to each other. That trust becomes the foundation of emotional resilience. It's what allows a relationship to weather the inevitable storms without falling apart. Repair also requires patience. Sometimes the person who is hurt needs time to process before they can fully receive the repair attempt. Smart couples don't force forgiveness. They give space when needed, but they don't disappear emotionally. They stay present. They say, I'm here when you're ready, and they show through their actions that they're committed to doing better. Ultimately, fast and sincere repair is one of the most loving things a couple can practice. It sends the message that the relationship is more important than the fight, that love is not conditional, that no matter what, they're in this together. And that when mistakes happen, and they will, they'll face them side by side, not from across a chasm of silence or resentment. This is how trust is built, not just once, but over and over again. In every apology that's meant, in every act of accountability, in every effort to reconnect even when it's hard, that's what keeps a relationship strong. Not perfection, but the unwavering commitment to repair what's broken with care, humility, and love. After the argument has ended, after the tension has broken and the silence has lifted, there's one more step that smart couples always take, one that many people forget. They reaffirm the relationship. They remind each other that even though they disagreed, even though things got messy, the foundation between them is still strong. That they're still a team. That love remains. This step might seem small, but it's one of the most powerful ways couples stay emotionally connected through conflict. Because even when things get resolved on the surface, the emotional residue can still linger. Doubts can creep in. Questions like, are we okay? Or do you still care? Often go unspoken. But when partners actively reaffirm their bond, those silent questions get answered with warmth, clarity, and security. Reaffirming the relationship isn't about pretending the argument didn't happen. It's not about rushing back to normal as if nothing took place. It's about acknowledging, yes, that was difficult, and yes, we're still in this together. It's a moment of reconnection that says, our love is bigger than our disagreement. This can take many forms. It might be a physical gesture, a hug, holding hands, sitting close without words. It might be a simple statement like, I know that was tough, but I still choose you. Or even when we argue, I'm not going anywhere. These are not dramatic declarations, they're quiet truths. They rebuild the emotional bridge that may have felt shaky during the argument. Smart couples know that conflict can make people feel emotionally exposed. Words spoken in anger or frustration can leave wounds, even after apologies are made. That's why the reaffirmation matters. It's emotional repair. It calms the nervous system. It rebuilds trust. It reminds both people that safety still exists in the relationship. Over time, this practice creates a deep emotional resilience. When both partners regularly reaffirm the relationship after conflict, they develop a strong belief in the relationship's durability. They stop fearing that every disagreement will be a breaking point. Instead, they trust that even when they stumble, they will always find their way back to each other. Reaffirmation also helps prevent emotional disconnection from building over time. In relationships where this step is skipped, resentment can quietly take root. Partners may begin to feel uncertain, unloved, or emotionally alone, even when everything looks fine on the outside. But couples who take the time to say, "We're okay," or "I love you," especially now, are constantly reinforcing their emotional bond. That bond becomes a soft place to land when life gets hard. It's also important to understand that reaffirmation is a two-way street. Both people need to feel seen, valued, and reassured. One partner may initiate it, but ideally both lean in. It's not about keeping score, it's about holding space for each other's humanity. Acknowledging that you're both imperfect, both learning, and both committed. This practice becomes especially important in long-term relationships where patterns can become deeply ingrained. After years together, some couples stop saying the things that once came easily. They assume love is understood, but love always benefits from being expressed. Especially after tension, reassurance is not optional, it's essential. Ultimately, reaffirming the relationship after the storm is about making love visible again. It's about turning back toward each other with kindness, with softness, and with a reminder that no argument, no frustration, no difficult day is stronger than the commitment to walk through it together. It's how couples stay close, not just when it's easy, but especially when it's hard. And it's one of the clearest signs of a relationship built to last.